alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm your host, Tim Niederreiter, and with us today is a returning guest to the podcast of another fabulous indie author, Michael W. Lucas. Welcome back.
Hi, it's great to be back.
I'm glad I remembered your name because I covered it up with the streaming equipment. Anyway, because you're a man who has several first names in some ways, so it was kind of difficult to not mix them up.
I do separate what I write by my name as a brand, as it were.
Of course. A lot of us do that. I've actually been thinking I've been thinking of writing some nonfiction, but it would be literary essay type stuff because that's where my expertise lies. But and if you can call that expertise at all, honestly. Anyway, yeah, never mind that. That's just a teaser. So, Michael, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and the sort of stuff you write.
Well, I've been a published author for about 30 years now. I write nonfiction on how the internet works. I write a bunch of different kinds of fiction, science fiction, crime novels. I've dipped my toes in romantic suspense and fantasy. My newest book, though, is a cozy murder.
So just branching out yet again.
Well, one of my most successful novels, people demanded a sequel to it. So this is my second cozy.
Okay.
And it's set it's a murder at a computer conference.
A classic situation if ever there was one.
Well, you have murders in the tea shop.
That's true.
And murders at the butterfly exhibit. And there are, if you go looking at some of the classic cozy mysteries, like Mrs. Seton and Mrs. Polifax and Murder, She Wrote even.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in these tight little spaces.
Yes.
Where a cozy is basically, one of the defining characteristics is it's set in a confined area.
Of course. That makes sense. So a convention's actually a pretty good place to have a murder mystery in some ways.
Yes. All the suspects are there.
Yeah, you're not going to have a murders in the Rue Morgue situation on your hands, you know.
Right.
That classic insane story idea there. What if the orangutan did it? Anyway.
Yes.
Was that I think that's Edgar Allan Poe, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, yeah. So what's the name of the book again?
This is called Get Sync Murder. The title is a pun on some computer stuff. There's a computer program called Git, and it has a bunch of commands you use after it. And the first one was called Git Commit Murder.
That's a great title. Get Sync Murder isn't bad either, but Get Commit.
It's not.
That's even stronger. Yeah, I can see why you went with that was the first book.
That was the first one. And they're available everywhere. I have people who have told me they know nothing about computers have read them and enjoyed them. So I'm pretty comfortable recommending them. There's another nice thing about cozy murders is there's not a lot of explicit blood.
Yep.
No real on-screen violence. You know that the murderer is going to get caught. It's cozy.
Yeah, it's almost like the classic romantic kind of, like a romance novel kind of murder mystery in some ways.
There's a lot of similarity there.
Interesting. I mean, that was just a guess on my part just now, so I'm glad I wasn't totally off base. There's some things in common anyway, for sure.
Yeah. Yes, a cozy mystery, you expect that the major plot points will be all tied off neatly and everyone will be happy.
Mm-hmm.
If you read just a general murder mystery or a crime novel, the main mystery will get solved, but there may be extra people dead. There may be, characters succumb to this or that. There's this whole spectrum all the way down to noir, which is, the bad guys win, the puppy drowns. Cozy is happy fun murder.
As fun as a murder can get. You can't
As
have more
fun
fun
as
with
a
a murder
murder
than a
can
cozy mystery.
Absolutely.
Yeah, unless you're Hannibal Lecter. Anyway, so or someone like that. So,
Yes.
So, yeah. So you said you dabbled in fantasy though, and I just want to go off on a tangent now because I don't remember you mentioning that before. Maybe you did, but I when our previous episode, and that's of course currently my big area of interest right now is fantasy. That's what I'm writing, and that's what preoccupies me. What was your fantasy like when you were writing? If it wasn't too long ago,
my
talking about it.
Most of my fantasy is shorts.
Okay.
The one that's most popular, I've written a stack of books that if I put one copy of everything and stack it up, it reaches my eyebrows.
Right.
So, I've written a bunch of fantasy that nobody cares about, but
I see. Yeah.
what most people like would be the Prohibition orcs.
Awesome.
It's the modern year of 1927, and orcs still have to put up with elitist elvish bullshit. Well, Tolkien said that the elves went into the West. Clearly, he meant they emigrated to America. And a generation later, the dwarves follow, and finally some orcs follow. And
yeah, now they're all in America. Oh, that's such a good idea. I love that.
So we have, smuggling and bootlegging and some of the stories are a little quieter, like trying to buy clothes.
For your weird mutated orc frame, maybe. Yeah.
Well, yeah. How do you get an orc a suit?
Well, with great care and tailoring, I'd imagine.
Absolutely.
Now I'm just imagining. I love the monster in a suit thing. Honestly, monster in the big the blazer jacket or whatever is so funny to me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's also so. I mean, like, or even like Hellboy, where he's just wearing a trench coat, like he's wearing an old school PI trench coat thing, but he's like a literal devil, the tail and everything.
It's great fun to play with this stuff, and the Prohibition era is great fun.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because there are these rules that nobody follows and nobody wants.
Isn't it weird how that works? But we will not go into politics. That's
yeah, let's not.
Let's leave it in the 100 years ago politics at the closest.
Yes. And Prohibition is also where a lot of our classic detective fiction came from.
Mm-hmm.
That's Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler. All that stuff is Prohibition. And it's great fun to play with.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, those are still great stories today in a lot of cases. And,
yes.
I mean, just like a lot of the pulp authors, these people just they didn't get away with writing something boring. That's for sure.
No. Well, pulp was the television of its day. Mm-hmm. And it really was entertain or die.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have this book that I got for my birthday a couple of years ago, The Pulp Jungle. I forget the author, but it's a biography. It's not a biography actually, or a memoir of the author who wrote for like Black Mask and stuff like that. He was a big pulp author. I for some reason the name is escaping me. But there was and he writes about all these other people, but he was barely surviving. Like he'd break up the crackers and before he broke in. He'd be breaking up crackers and shooting ketchup into the broth at the automat to make his dinner. It's just it's just so brutal.
It was, and once you break in, you're okay.
Yeah,
kind of like today. You can make a pretty good living as a mid-list writer now if you are seriously entertaining.
Okay. I'm on my way trying to get there. So, sorry, go on. I was just providing the context for me.
It doesn't matter if it's fiction, if it's nonfiction, if it's essays. If you can entertain, if you can take people's minds off of, say, a pandemic, they will happily pay you.
Oh, yeah. And then the world's your oyster, or your mollusk, or some other thing.
The world is your mollusk.
I think that's a Terry Pratchett line, actually. Full credit.
Yes. If you look over on the wall behind me, you'll see about 6 feet of Terry Pratchett in hardcover.
Yeah. Pratchett's a classic. He was a great dude. And a great author, obviously.
Yes. He was not just a great practitioner of the English language. He was an awesome human being.
Yeah.
It's kind of annoying.
How do you yeah.
Well, he's raised the standards for the rest of us.
And he did it mostly without ever using chapter breaks in fiction, for at least.
Yes.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, I still think, wait a minute, there's no chapter breaks? Where do I stop? It's like, you're not supposed to stop, are you? Oh, no, you're supposed to read the whole thing and laugh your ass off and enjoy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What? He broke every rule about point of view and got away with it.
Yeah, now another one actually reminds me of another author that we lost. We lost Dirt while I was at the Writing Excuses retreat in 2013. Ian Banks. Are you familiar with Banks?
Yes.
Oh, that was way too soon. Anyway, not to make everybody sad. This is supposed to be an entertaining show. I'm trying to entertain people, but these are some authors that I can't help but reminisce about, and when they're gone, it just makes it all the worse.
It does, but both of those are. Most writers are remembered at most 5 years after their death. And we are going to be reading Banks and Pratchett for years to come.
They hit it out of the park, that's for sure. Those guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They will be representatives of the late 19th and early 20th century.
You mean late 20th, early 21st?
Yeah, one of them.
It's okay. It's okay. The dates don't make sense. It's fine. Centuries are messed up.
Yes.
At least it's not. It's a little bit confusing. That's for sure. Because I know people. Yeah, it's like no Terry Pratchett. I mean, honestly, it would have been kind of cool to see what Terry Pratchett would have thought of Oscar Wilde. But I bet we already got that.
Yeah.
More like what would Oscar Wilde think of Terry Pratchett? That would have been interesting too.
Oh yes.
So
yes.
That's now we're talking the timey-wimey thing where we can't understand. How would that even work? We don't know. We couldn't know.
Why has there not been a Doctor Who episode about meeting Terry Pratchett?
In 19th century England. No.
I'll take it.
That'd be so funny. I mean, yeah, he's now a Time Lord. Okay, he's a time traveler or something. Yeah.
Oh, we should be so lucky.
Yeah, that'd be nice. He just went through the what is it they call that? I'm not actually a huge Who fan here. Rejuvenation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, that's enough tangents there. Sorry.
Okay.
But last time we were I say that, but last time we were relatively serious. I was asking you a ton of questions, partially because I was in such a bad state, and I'm like, and asking you questions is good. Not always good to have those answers, but I'm trying to explain here that. You know, when I feel like I'm still waking up. I'm coming out of this like coma where I had no energy. I was always miserable, and lately I have way more energy for various reasons, chemical reasons. I feel way better, and it's been great.
Good.
And so I just have more. I'm just bubbling, and it's hard to ask questions when I just want to babble.
That's okay. This last 18 months or so has kind of sucked.
Yeah, you're telling me. No, it's been awful. I mean, and it's also tough for a creator to keep I mean, like, even I canceled the book because it was too pandemic related. I can't.
Yeah.
It was a sequel that I planned before the pandemic, and I'm like, it's going to be a pandemic book. I'm like, I have to retool this entire sequel concept. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
And I'm glad I did, because it was a boring idea in the first place. Along with, I mean, it's one of those problems. Like, actually, and this is a question maybe you could speak to, because I find, at least my opinion lately, is that, you know, there's no room for boredom in a book, right? It's much like, it's not like you don't have there's no commercial breaks in a book, right? You can't stop
Right.
and because it's a line, it's a single line. If the reader stops moving, they're no longer experiencing the story. You know, they're frozen.
Right.
And that's fine if they have to go to bed, but if they do that if they do that because they're bored, well, you're screwed. That's the end of the story for them. And it's not strictly just the reader, because as a writer, I mean, I discovery write my books, so if I get bored, I'm like, well, I'm done. This can end an entire novel for me. And sometimes it can be as simple as, like, I encountered in one of these books, these traditionally published books I was reading a while ago, where, like, every time I started a chapter, there was some kind of pastoral opening, and I'm like, ugh. Just brick wall. The rest of the book was good, but the openings to many of these chapters were so dull. I'm like, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't jump over another hurdle at the time. Maybe I'll go back now that I'm feeling better. But I guess all that, by way of saying that, I mean, what do you do to keep yourself interested in a book? And just start with that. I've been going on long enough.
To keep myself interested in writing the book, I need a couple things. One, it's about you'll hear a lot of writers say it's about the character. I've got a slightly different take on that. It's about the character voice and point of view.
Interesting.
I try to write characters who, look at Get Sync Murder, the new Cozy. My character has intense attention deficit disorder and social anxiety. I have been told by more than one reader that these books are not cozy mysteries. They're social anxiety horror.
Oh boy, that sounds like it might be tough. I now I'm starting to think maybe this book isn't for me. This book definitely isn't for me, even though I have ADHD and social anxiety. So of course, you know, among other things.
Well, a lot of people who have ADHD tell me that they really relate to the character.
Of course.
And the struggle of getting through an uncomfortable place. Because if you're a computer programmer and you work in an office and there's maybe a dozen people around you, and then you have to go to a conference with 1,500, 2,000 people, and you have to give a talk in front of all of them, and worse, you're known as the guy who solved a murder at the last conference.
That's kind
and
of
someone turns up dead this time.
Oh boy. Yeah. No, that's gonna stress. That's gonna be a stressor for sure on that character. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about that character's perspective on what they perceive. All five senses sink deep in their head. And it doesn't matter if I'm writing, you know, a gentle nerd with ADHD who would never dream of hitting someone, or like in another mystery series I write, is more of a crime series. The protagonist is a hardened criminal thief, and who has a very different view on everything.
I would imagine so.
Or an orc, or whatever.
Just
you sink really deep in a character that has a little different way of looking at the world. And then I stick really hard to the the Algis Budrys 7-point plot.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because that, if you ever get a chance, Budrys wrote a book called Writing to the Point. And I would tell you this is the best book on writing in the Western literature ever written.
Wow, that's an impressive pimpage there, I gotta say.
That's
interesting.
It breaks it very much down, and it has a plot structure. I firmly believe if you follow that, and that is the only thing you really worry about, your book will be interesting.
I noticed how you didn't say good, but interesting is good too. Interesting is a step toward good at any rate.
Yes, well, and good is overrated. Maybe even
better. It's better than good in a way too, if you think about it, because good is a generic, like, it doesn't tell you a whole lot about what's going on in this book,
right?
Whereas interesting is gonna make you think, or it's gonna drag you through it in a way, you know.
Yes. And that's one of my goals, is to stick a couple fingers up the reader's nose, slam them into the page, and say, "You may leave when you have finished this book," and not let them go. So, and my readers tell me I'm pretty good at it.
Well, sir, I'm sure they're not wrong. I have not read one of your works yet. I need to get on that.
Well, if you're a fantasy reader, you should probably look at some orcs.
Definitely, I'll have to look up Your Name plus Orcs on Amazon and other sites.
It's there.
Okay.
You can.
I was going. Sorry.
I have, my website is mwl.io, and there are links to everything there.
You heard that, folks? MWL.io. Nice. Just 5 letters and a period. That's all you need to know.
It's cell phone friendly, because I can't type on the blasted things.
I wish I'd thought of that when I was coming up with my stupid website name. But then when you got a name as long as mine, and then you come up with a publishing company name that's also long, it's like, oh, this was a dumb idea.
Well, my publishing company is Tilted Windmill Press, so I feel enough. Your pain.
Yes. But at least you have the site, the pithy site at letters.
Yes.
Anyway, but it's been great having you on, actually. We are running out of time again, as always. As these are kind of quick hit episodes, it's been great having you back on. It's been really fun, and you already did the pimpage, so I'm just going to do my pimpage. But also don't forget Get Sync Murder. I think I said that right. Get Sync Murder. Check it out wherever fine books are distributed on the internet. And and then as for me, you can find my books. By now, the second Twisted Gods book should be out. It's called Beloved of Death, and yes, it's not as grim as it sounds, actually. Because as of saying this, I mean, I'm recording a little ahead, so this is kind of unusual for me. But as of saying this, the book isn't actually finished drafting yet, so who knows? Maybe it'll get darker. But it's the sequel. It's the sequel to for The Forgotten Mask, and these are both books about, steampunk gods fighting steampunk giants, but also the gods are lazy and they mostly live up to the heroes who are human. Just ordinary mortals with a little bit of power, divine power at their backs, and they have to fight these titanic mech giant things. And they also have to deal with how nasty their own gods are. It's not a fun situation, but it's a fun book. I find it entertaining, and I think you will too if you're a fantasy fan, or maybe even a steampunk fan. I think it does lean a little bit on the edge there. Because the main thing is being that there's the technology in this book comes from the steampunk giants. Like, you kill a giant, now you can turn it into a steam engine. Great. Because it was made of a steam engine in the first place. But, so definitely for fantasy fans. Also, I got Demon Scroll out there. You can find all my books on Amazon.com. And also, all the print books are now available wide. So you can get those anywhere. You can get a print-on-demand book on the internet. So thanks for listening, everybody. Yeah, throw up the horns for us. It's been good. Stay safe out there. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
That tears it.